making capital this guy again. Hello and welcome to another episode of With Enough Prep Time. I'm your host, the Nerd Man, and today, really exciting. I didn't know about this, but the murderer, basically from the TV show The Jinx, is having his court case, his trial. His defense lawyer is giving his opening statement. So I'm going to do a live reaction to this with you guys. This is crazy. This case. I'll talk to you a little bit about it in between. But this is such a crazy case. And I don't know how this defense lawyer is going to. We will talk. I'll fill you in a little bit about this case as it goes on and what I remember of it as it goes on. Wow. I completely forgot this was happening. Like, I didn't know this was happening or that they were going to show this on YouTube. So I'm just going to.
By the time he came back to pick up his glasses, the police had found the receipt from the optometrist. They'd gone to the optometrist and said, on the slight chance that Bob Durst, by the way, the receipt was in the name of Bob Durst because he was by then living as Bob. If this guy comes back, call us. And he did. He came back. Still, nobody in Galveston knew who Bob Durst was. The police didn't know who Bob Durst was. It was just Bob Durst. So he came to pick up the glasses.
Guys, if you've never seen this before,
the counter,
there's a documentary called The Jinx.
Stopped him and arrested him.
Right? So there's a documentary called The Jinx, and basically it's about this billionaire. Like comes from a legacy, a billionaire family, right? And essentially, there was a documentary where these guys were investigating this guy for a number of murders that happened like in the 80s and 90s, I believe. Now, he was the prime suspect for all these murders. He got off the charge several times. I thought, listening to the guy, that he might actually be innocent. But this documentary, with the interview, they were interviewing him following. During the actual documentary, it was revealed that this guy's probably the guy who did it. Like, really, like, they got him big time. So this is just a part of the case. This is now the trial of, post this documentary. They'll probably use the documentary extensively as evidence in his case. So we're gonna find, like, was this guy responsible? Did he do this shit?
You can argue later.
He definitely did. I mean, there's no doubt. But, like, everyone's innocent until proven guilty. So
that's a resolving blood blister. It's everybody's had a blood blister, I think.
Still sounds like argument.
Yeah, don't argue, please.
All right.
Lawyers can't help it. Stop.
Whoever killed Susan Berman left no clue.
that's weird of the judge.
Kathy Durst disappeared without a trace. After Morris Black.
So I'm only going to watch like 30 minutes or so of it.
Hundreds.
But I'm going to follow this case. So we'll talk about it day by day, what's going on with it. Or as much as I can possibly cover
November
it.
the 11th, 2003, a jury that looked a lot like you, people from all walks of life, 12 people found Bob Durst not guilty. After that, Bob pled guilty to charges that arose from dismembering the body and disposing of the body, and from jumping bond, which he did right after he was arrested. He jumped bond. He traveled from Galveston up to the East Coast and was arrested in early November. Of 2001, shoplifting a chicken salad sandwich and a Wall Street Journal and a Band-Aid, because when he shaved his hair and eyebrows, he had nicked himself and needed a Band-Aid. The police arrested him. They put him in custody. And he was taken back to Galveston. After the jury found him not guilty, he owned up to
It's a weird case, dude. Watch
destroying
the
evidence
links. It's a
and
documentary series.
bond
It's
jumping.
fascinating about this guy.
and he served some more time.
The guy basically
Took him
murdered
up to
someone, and
Pennsylvania.
then like he was a billionaire rich guy, murdered someone,
Filed gun
and then
charges on him,
ran
took him to
away,
federal court. He served a little more
and dressed
time
as a
in
woman
federal court,
for about
came
like a
back
year, like
to
pretending
Houston,
to be a woman for about a year, so that he could
where
evade
he
the
has
police.
lived ever since. He's had other homes, but right now his home is in Houston, Texas.
All right, super wise.
And that would have been the end of the story. But Bob wanted his story out. He wanted to explain himself, because everywhere he went, he got stares, and people would look out of the corner of their eyes on him. And he wanted the public to know that he wasn't the Bob Durst everybody thought he was, that he'd had a rough life, that he'd been hounded all his life. The problem is that he chose the wrong people to tell that story. Andrew Jarecki and his crew had made a movie called All Good Things. It was named All Good Things.
I think it was
after
about the
health
70s.
food store that Bob and Kathy had in Vermont, where they were happy.
I think it was the 80s,
And it
70s
was
or
a,
80s.
Well, it was a movie. Took a lot of imagination. Bob liked the way that Seymour Durst was portrayed in it, because Seymour was portrayed as an overbearing, mean father. And he thought that he would get an honest depiction
The
of
documentary actually came out about,
And so Andrew Jarecki and his crew started interviewing
4 years ago,
Bob.
3 years ago.
Bob cooperated with them completely. And the result was the series, The Jinx. Now, some people call it a documentary. It's not a documentary. It doesn't pretend to be a documentary, but it's called one. It was a series of programs that ran in early 2015. By the time of the fifth segment, there were 6 segments. By the time of the fifth segment, it became obvious to Bob that this was a hatchet job, that it wasn't his story as he wanted it told. It was a heavily edited story to make good entertainment. And in fact, it won an Emmy. But after the 5th segment, Bob again panicked. He he left his apartment in Houston. He had a gun with him. He had a mask with him. He had a fake ID with him. And he drove to New Orleans and rented a hotel room so he could watch the sixth segment, which was the one where they had the heavily edited bathroom tape, where Bob said, kill them all, of course. What the evidence will show is that Bob finally realized what Jarecki and his crew were trying to show, that he killed them all. He knew he'd been fooled. And he panicked. And he ran.
Wow.
But again, Bob and his actors, he doesn't make good decisions. And so although he was in New Orleans, he threw his cell phone out so he couldn't be traced on the way over there. He called back into his answering service to get his messages. And of course, the LA district attorney or the LAPD had trap and trace and warrants on his phone. And as soon as he did that, they were able to trace where the call came from, that it came from the hotel in New Orleans. 2 FBI showed up. They arrested him, searched his room, found money, guns, dope. He called right away, as soon as he could, to his lawyers.
So that's going to call for hearsay.
One great
He's going
thing.
to testify about it.
Doesn't matter. It's not a court statement.
What this is overruled. Continue.
Yeah.
And pull up your mask, please.
Is there a court saying it's not?
I'm just overruling your objection right now.
Yeah, no, that's a good point,
Garen thinks
philosophical
that's what the evidence
pickle.
is gonna show.
And it's kind of like,
Before
yeah,
his lawyers
so you don't
got
get like
there,
all
Mr.
of the
Lewin
like
and his crew got there.
crazy stories about serial killers anymore because they just catch them like the
Early
first
in the
time they
morning.
do anything.
Appropriate argument, there's an inference in that.
Either that or they're being careful nowadays because they know about this stuff.
Okay, hold on.
So we don't know that.
Speaking of objection.
I'm not going to let
Speaking of
it
objection.
I'm not going to let it stand.
All right, but I'm not going to allow speaking objections, Mr. Lewin. Thank you very much. Your objection, though, is sustained, and that is that you are venturing into the world of argument. But you may present the facts, present the evidence that you expect to present.
I expect the evidence to show that Mr. Lewin interrogated.
I would ask the court. to
May I stop?
please instruct the jury that objection was sustained about that comment. That is a comment that cannot just sit out there.
All right, Mr. Lewin, please. Ladies and gentlemen, disregard any argument that you heard. You will be the judges of the facts. As far as any statements that are made, you may examine the entire circumstance under which the statement is given to determine whether it's true and reliable. I'll instruct you very specifically about statements from a defendant and how to consider those statements. I won't allow argument at this time about that. You may describe the situation, but be careful, Mr. DeGuerin.
Well, the evidence will be clear that Bob Durst's lawyers were not in that interview. The evidence will be clear that it was Mr. Lewin and a couple of detectives that took him out of his cell early in the morning in one of the worst prisons in the country and interrogated him for almost 3 hours. The prosecution says that's a confession. You'll see how Bob Durst was playing Mr. Lewin. It wasn't a confession. The evidence will be that there's no evidence.
All right, I'm going to watch this for 10 minutes longer, and then I'll give some final statements about what I
A
think
couple of slides here.
about this, and then
He got
I'll
the
be
interviews
off.
for
But
the Jinx. He had his final interview for the Jinx 3 years later, after sharing some of their information with the LA DA's office. They began airing the Jinx on March 14th, the day before the final airing of the Jinx of the last segment. Bob was arrested, and beginning at 6 o'clock in the morning in the New Orleans Parish Prison, Mr. Lewin interrogated Bob for 2 hours and 47 minutes. The only case before you to determine a verdict is the murder of Susan Berman. The evidence is lacking. The evidence isn't there. Bob Durst did not kill Susan Berman, and he doesn't know who did. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeGuerin. Now, before we break for lunch,
okay, that's
share
a
with you my
perfect
investigation of the dining situation. So yeah, you're raising you hear me. This is it. Here, wait.
Okay, that's a perfect time to stop. So I'm going to be following this case and like doing little kind of analysis of what's happening, the trial. I might rewatch the Jinx again just so that I can relay to you the information on what exactly went down in this case and why it's so significant, and why it's just a hilariously crazy case, where a documentary ultimately brought this man down. The only reason this man is being tried, because he's been tried, before for this crime. And the only reason it's being done again is because of a supposed confession that he did at the end of this documentary. So it's going to be very, very interesting and intriguing to see exactly what happens in this case, exactly how much of this documentary plays in as evidence of his guilt, and what the outcome is. This was I can't explain to you. If you haven't seen the Jinx, watch it again. It was an amazing documentary, one of the best documentaries I've ever seen like crime documentaries I've ever seen. So just watch it, and you can tell me, and hopefully I'll have some people here to discuss this case, discuss the Jinx, discuss this trial, and what their opinions are on it in later kind of as I do more and more on this topic. But it's fascinating to me, so I'm just going to follow it, and see what happens, see if I get any viewers from it and stuff like that. But apart from that, you know what it is. Please like, give me a high five, smash that like button, subscribe, comment. I love the comments. I'll always respond to the comments. And of course, you know how it is. I'm going to see you on the flip side, and I love you 3000. Peace.